Hello. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you, Toby, for inviting me. I know Toby asked if I could come and spend a few minutes, and I said I can't do it in 3 minutes. So it'll take a little bit longer than that. So we have a presentation. Hopefully it'll flag up here at some point. We have, and please bear with me because there's a few things we want to talk about. One of them is, if you look on your bill, you'll find what's called a purchase power adjuster. What is that? Well, it's a mechanism that allows us that if we've incurred some high cost of fuel, which would be coal or natural gas or the market that we're in, if that cost is up, we can't control those costs. And once your rates are set by a test year and they're fixed. So anything that changes up or down, this is called the purchase power adjuster. It's very common throughout the whole state of Arizona. It's pretty much common throughout the United States. It allows us to actually move up and down if we see changes in our, and we actually incur changes. We can't see them, we have to incur them, meaning that it's a backwards look at what happens from our natural gas, coal, or what happens in our purchase power. And we're in the purchase power energy market whenever it gets really hot and the loads get really high. And that, as you'll see this year, the same thing, but it's happened year after year. The PPA can change every month, and we're regulated by the ACC. They actually review our purchase power accounting. We have a third-party auditor that reviews our purchase power accounting as well as ACC, and that's done on a regular basis. Go ahead and go to the next one. So since 2014, we've been trying to manage our costs, whether it be purchase power cost, natural gas, coal cost. And you can see since about 2014, it's been a refund or a credit. That refund and credit has been very consistent, or it's been up and down, but you can see it's been a refund credit, and it's been to the tune of about $82 million through all of our members since 2014. We have most recently, and you'll see later, you'll see here as we go, that we've incurred some cost in 2022 and 2023. You can ask me what the charge was and the fee was before, but that was all before my time, so I really can't tell you what happened when we were a plus 3.5 cents. I just know I got here when it was 3.5 cents charge, and that's what we've done since. Go ahead, next slide. Back in November of 2023, based upon our 2022 and 2023 financials and what was happening in the market, we tried to give you a notice, and that notice was the PPA is going to change to a 2-cent charge. Now, we can't actually predict what that means to your bill because your usage is the biggest part of your bill. But we gave you a heads up on something that we did know and we could control. Next slide, please. Again, that letter that went out to every MEC member, and if you're like some people, you just threw that in the trash, you didn't read it, and now you're a little surprised. Now you're surprised for this summer. So what happened? What caused that? Well, you can see on this on these charts from 2021 to 2023, the purchase power on the market has increased 159% over those 3 years. The natural gas has increased 61% per decatherm. That DTH is decatherm. You don't have to worry about what that really means. It's the equivalent of a gallon of gas. It's not equivalent to, but consider it just a measurement. And the coal prices since 2016 all the way to 2024 have increased substantially as well. That caused the purchase power adjuster. It was costs that were outside of our rates, and the last rate was in 2021. So anything above that in 2021 are costs that we didn't have in our rate. Next slide, please. And costs have been really volatile in the last 3 years. Somebody can tell me what color is that graph? Anybody? Is it blue? All right, that graph is blue. You'll see that for many, many years it's been fairly steady. It went up a little bit about 8 years ago, 10 years ago, but from 2021 to 2023 and even most recently, that's the price that we're out in the market in. And to give you an example, that's when it says it's $1,800 or $1,600, That's per megawatt. That's dollars per megawatt hour. And what we used to get it at in those previous years, and what was in our rate, is about $60. So that's a huge amount. So when we're in the market, we're in the market big. Whenever we had a problem, those problems could be if we have a delay in a piece of equipment, like our solar batteries going into place, or we have an outage on a unit. That's where this takes place. Go ahead in the next slide, please. So we did incur a whole bunch of dollars, increased dollars over those particular years. We had a generation turbine outage that caused us to be in the market. We had some fuel adjusters that came from our generation and transmission providers, which were positive. Our battery infrastructure projects got delayed for a couple of years, and that's all having to do with supply chain issues that a lot of us have dealt with over the last few years since the, I don't know what to call it, the pandemic or plandemic. I'm not sure what it is, but and so anyway, that it caused us, so we didn't get those batteries in operation until this year, which is a good thing because this year we needed it quite a bit with what was going on. Go ahead in the next slide. Now, the thing we couldn't predict, and we can't give you a heads up and predict about, is what was Mother Nature going to do? What's the weather going to do? So this is actual weather data from the National Weather Service for June high temps and June 2023 high temps from last year to this year. As you can see, they're substantially higher in June. And not just were they higher during the day, you can see some of the writing on the side. It was about 9% higher. The highs were 9% higher. And you can see all of the days, 29 of 30 of those days, higher temps than June of 2023. And we'll also be able to demonstrate that with you, because when you see high temperatures, you'll expect higher usage, and we'll show you that as well. Go ahead to the next slide. And we're using National Weather Service data, so it's a third-party data. That's the low temps. And it was very typical for June and most of July, is that the low temps were higher than last year's low temps. So if you look at 2023 low temps, and that's at night. So typically the night temperatures dip, but we didn't see a lot of that in June and July of this year. You probably noticed that. You probably went at 11 o'clock, midnight, and it's still hot, sometimes triple digits. It did not dip low and low. What does that mean to you, is that, or all of our members, is that the air conditioners were working just as hard as at night, or working very hard at night, difference than it was a year ago. Go ahead, the next slide. This is from the Mojave Daily News, and this July was the hottest month in recorded Bullhead City history. Go ahead to the next slide. And this was all in the media. These are quotes from the media. Normally, and I tried to point that out, that normally our summers have some 80-degree nights, or gets into the 80s. They remained in triple digits well after sundown. It wasn't the case this particular year. We had more days when the low temp was above 90 degrees than ever. That was also a record. And again, that means at night, no matter where you're setting your thermostat, you're working at night as well. And we had 10 days of extreme temperatures, 117 to 122 during that July 4th to the 13th. 6 days with 120 degrees or hotter, replacing the previous mark of 5 in July of 2003. So we had a record year this particular year. And then to go from that, we'll tell you what we saw. Go ahead, next slide. So what we saw is in July of 2024, we had a 39.73% increase over last year in usage. That's the hot weather. That's all usage, and that's something we can't control. We don't control your thermostats. Even if you set your thermostat to a certain temperature and you had it the same last year as this year, because it's hotter, your air conditioner is going to work more, and it's going to work more continuously, because your air conditioner, basically what you're doing is you're fighting the outside temperature to the inside temperature. It's that temperature differential. Doesn't matter what you set your thermostat is, it's that temperature differential. Insulation plays a factor in it, weatherization, covering windows to make sure the sun's not in, yes, all of that, but it's still usage. Now, we couldn't predict this. We can't predict what your usage is. So you can see in July, you also see in June of 24 was 10.7% higher. So you had both June and July, and if you looked at June from July of 24, it was 53.15%. So if your bills went up, absolutely, of course they went up. It's basically usage, and our rates are our rates, but it's basically the usage. Go ahead to the next slide. You can see that the rate hikes in Havasu were very, very similar. And there was a quote taken into that from Renke Heating and Air Conditioning, which makes sense, is that most of the AC units are designed at 119 degrees or less, meaning they will operate efficiently. Anything over 119 degrees, they don't operate efficiently. So you're going to use more electricity trying to keep the same temperature in your house as soon as it gets over 119. Now, I would also suggest to you that this is fairly new units. If you have an older unit or a unit that's not working very well, which I had last year, my usage last year was through the roof because I had one unit that wasn't working well, eventually failed, and another unit that wasn't working very well and got fixed. So I had 3 months of very high bills, but that was all my AC. I can tell that from this year to last year, and the AC unit I put in was more efficient as well. So this is very typical. It's what's happening throughout all of Arizona. Arizona had a hot summer. Next one. Even though there is a record heat reported, if you look at our energy cost comparison, 1777 kilowatt hours was the July average. If you use more than that, maybe you have a larger house. If you use less than that, you had a smaller house, or your own usage. Whether you set it at 80, do you set it at 77, do you set it at night, did you try to set it cooler, and you fought that night temperatures, that all are things that play into this, but we don't control that thermostat. But even with even with that, if you look at that heat, MEC's rate against Unisource, APS, NV Energy, in fact, all of the other co-ops in the state, we're still the lowest for the same usage. And we use that 1777 kilowatt hours since that was the average. If your usage was higher, it'll be higher. If yours was lower, it'll be lower. There's the average kilowatt hour usage for 23 versus what it was in 24. So you're seeing a very large difference from 23 to 24. So if there's a thought that Arizona is always hot, it wasn't any hotter than last year, that's not really accurate according to really the data and the facts. And if you take a look at the average total energy cost from our PPA, you'll see what the PPA that I talked about earlier that we sent out back in November, what that contributes to your bill. And I think I covered that. Why does air conditioning use more energy when it's hot? Then I don't change my thermostat. You also know that intuitively. If you have your same temperature in your thermostat and it's in April, your AC is not running as much as it is in July because you know it's that differential in temperature. And why does my solar not generate as much energy when there's the hot sun, 110 degrees? If you know this, and we have solar ourselves, and we know this, solar becomes less and less efficient the hotter it is. So if your solar is supposed to put out a certain amount when it's cooler, probably the optimal temperature is probably about 80 degrees. If you're over that, you start degrading. So your solar's not going to put out so much, and it's kind of a sad slap in the face because you put in solar to help for this, but your solar's not doing the job it could or should when it's hot, and it just won't. It just can't. Go ahead, next slide, please. So here's a comparison of what the 2 cent was. We just lowered our PPA to 1 cent in September. So everyone that starts in the September billing cycle, which will be started, and you'll get bills about September 6th. Every one of those bills in September 6th should be at 1 cent instead of the 2 cent, and you'll see the difference, what that difference that makes PPA-wise for the same 1777 kilowatt hours. We hope and expect that if we can continue to basically match wits with Mother Nature on this heat for the rest of the year. We should be able to lower that purchase power adjuster back to zero here, hopefully before the end of this year. Next slide, please. This is just trying to point people to the bill. This is where you'll find all of this data. You'll see your kilowatt hour usage in that upper right-hand corner. You'd be surprised how many people, when I go to meetings, I go to Kiwanis meetings, or I go to Rotary meetings, and I say, so how many of you look at your bill? And most people don't. They just put it on automatic pay, and they don't actually look at the bill. But if you look at the bill, you'll see across the top, you'll see the services from what date to what date are your services, how many days, what the meter readings were, kilowatt hour usage. You'll see the purchase power adjuster, I think, is that box in green? Purchase power adjuster is in green. You'll see on the left, you'll see a comparison of usage and temperatures from one year to the next. You'll actually see at the bottom, it'll tell you what your current days were from that particular meter read to the next meter read. It tells you what your average kilowatt hour per day use was as well. So take a look at your bills. There's a lot of information on that particular bill. But starting September 6th, the bills that will be dated from that September 6th on, which is our first billing cycle in September, will have the 1 cent. I personally am on the last billing cycle, so I just got my bill and mine still has the 2 cents on it. Next slide, please. Cost. So you ask, what are we doing about it? Because that's a great question. Hopefully you're all aware that we've been trying to put in, and we've been approaching trying to get a natural gas unit in. We prefer not to be in the market when the market is crazy like that. And we can prefer to be able to be able to control our cost. We also have to have available generation when the solar's not there. And you say, when is it not there? Well, it's not there at night. It's also not there when clouds roll over, or it diminishes greatly. Somebody has to make that up. You're either in the market with those big, tall purchases, or you are generating yourself, and that's our hope to do this. If we would have had this unit up, this is just an example, that we would have saved $11.5 million. That's pretty close to the amount of money that was in our fuel bank that we had to adjust for. So I could tell you that if it was up, and I'm not saying that it's anyone's fault it's not up, but if it was up, we wouldn't have had a purchase power adjuster at all. So we are doing it. We are getting after it. Next one. Controllable cost. Controllable costs are costs that they don't go into the energy side. Controllable costs are labor, legal costs, benefits, supplies, materials, transportation. Those are fixed costs. They go into that customer charge. They are not on the energy side. The energy side is all by itself. It's energy, cost of fuel. That's only on the energy portion. Go to the next one. So this is one that we're pretty proud of. If you look at, we measure ourselves against all the other cooperatives in the United States every year about total controllable expenses per consumer. If you can see the median, you can see MEC's total. We rank 788, which we rank basically the best, or right near the best, of the total controllable expenses per consumer. So if people ask, do you benchmark yourself cost-wise? Absolutely. This is a benchmark. And what also to point out is we're one of the few states, less than 10, I think it's 6 at this particular point, that are regulated by a Public Utility Commission or a Corporation Commission, which does nothing but add complexity and cost. So we're one of the few that have the privilege of being overseen by the Corporation Commission, and we're still, even with those additional costs, we're still near the bottom. Next slide, please. And this is from the standpoint of the co-ops statewide. All the other co-ops in the state, we are at the very bottom, so we are the most economical of all of the co-ops in the state. Go ahead to the next one. And I have any questions, and I thank you again, Toby. Hopefully that I've been able to answer any questions that you might have had going forward here, but we are doing our best. It's hotter, and that hotter is shown by statistics and data, and that's about all I can really say.
Anyone have any questions?
Thank you, Toby. Thank you all for giving me this opportunity. And if you do have questions on your specific bill, please give us a call.
Thank you, Tyler.
Quite a few of those as well. Thank you.